Hello, everyone. We have Jennifer Lycette here today with us, JL Lycette. She is the author of two amazing medical thriller suspense books, and we are very excited to talk to her today. Um, how are you today, Jennifer?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today.
It's great to see you. Okay, so let me read your bio a little bit and give everyone a little bit of information about you. You are a novelist, an award-winning essayist, a rural physician, goodness gracious, a wife and a mom. And mid-career, you discovered narrative medicine on your path back from physician burnout, and you've been writing ever since. So that is a lot. Even just thinking about your to-do list on a day-to-day basis just shocks me. So tell us a little bit about that and how you make that all work.
Oh gosh, just I think taking it one day at a time. Um, I definitely compartmentalize, and so I work part-time, which means 4 days a week. And so those 4 days I'm usually not writing. I'm just, focusing on my day job and my patients. And then I do try then though, and this is where writing has really helped me to just have something else in my life and something creative. Then the 3 days I'm not at work, I try to truly detach and focus on my writing. And so that is something I didn't have in my life for a long time. And I think a lot of physicians, our career becomes our identity, and it's not
Yeah.
necessarily a bad thing, but boundaries can also be a good thing, and that's something I didn't really learn until a few years ago.
So can you tell us a little bit about what a rural physician is?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So basically, I work in a rural area of Oregon. So we have a small, what's called critical access hospital, which means the entire hospital is probably the size of some bigger hospitals, like a single unit. So it's under-resourced, but I find that very rewarding to bring the care I do, which is cancer care or oncology, to the rural community. So I've been in rural practice now for about 10 years in Oregon.
It's still a long time.
Yeah.
Now, working part-time, you say 4 days a week, but those are still long days.
Yeah, they can be. I mean, I'm thankfully at a point in my career where I don't have to like work overnight in the hospital or anything like that. But I would say, yeah, my clinic days are usually about 10 hours, and then I'm usually working um like 2 to 4 hours beyond that, like charting and things like that. So they can be like 14-hour days. But um for a long time, I did that like, 5 to 7 days a week. And so scaling back to 4 days has been a huge positive change for me.
Imagine. So how do you fit like that and being a mother? I mean, because being a mother is a full-time job too. So, I mean, how
Yes.
do you do both?
Yes, with a very supportive spouse. My husband actually, we've been married a long time. We actually met like before I went to medical school, so we've been together a long, long time. So, um, and he is, equal partner, and obviously with my schedule on the days I'm working, he's more of the parent on those days, and I think it's been something we've been doing for a long time because my kids are older now too. So my oldest is off in college, and then our other two are high school. So, uh, we have for a long time. I think before it was really more mainstream. He was the parent doing like the daycare stuff and the volunteering um eh, and I remember back at time, especially like when they would call, like a teacher would call and insist to talk to me, and I'd have to like pass it on to my husband because I'm like, I have no idea what she's talking about. And I think it's been like really rewarding to see how things have changed. But yeah, we were doing that like, back before I think it was really talked about. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine you being able to do this without having a partner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, so before we get into the fiction you write, let's talk a little bit about the nonfiction because you are constantly writing articles and submissions and papers, and you've got a lot going on there too.
Yeah, and that's I started out writing and still I love the form of the personal essay or the narrative essay and that was like when I think even before I knew I was like unfortunately heading toward this bottoming out of burnout that happened about 5 years ago. I was there was just like this like inner part of me that I didn't even know, like this writer inside that just like I don't know, I just had this compulsion to share these things. And so I started out by publishing like narrative medicine essays like in medical journals. Like a lot of medical journals have a space for like what's often called the art of medicine,
Mhm.
just um reflecting on sort of, deeper meaning and things we often learn from our patients. And so that was how I first started writing and publishing. And then I get asked this a lot, and I think other writers will understand, but maybe non-writers won't. But I mean, I really can't explain like why one day I just was like, I have this idea for a book, like for fiction, and I want to write this. And I joke if I had known how hard it was going to be, and I mean, it took essentially almost 7 years from that idea to the time the book was published. But that's all that time I had to, really teach myself how to write fiction. And I found that very rewarding, and again, just a creative outlet. And I think for, pretty much all my adult life up until then, I sort of like dismissed, and I think doctors, we tend to do this, like we get like really like academic and we're like, those
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
things like that. That's a silly pursuit. Like, why would you spend your time doing that? But it was like what my soul needed, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense.
Complete redirection of your downtime so you can completely check out.
Yes.
So this book that took you 7 years, was that The Algorithm Will See You Now?
Yes, that was the first one. Yes, the algorithm will see you now.
And tell us a little bit about that book.
Yeah. So it's a near future speculative thriller, and it's, excuse me, set in Seattle, and it's about a resident surgeon who has devoted her life to this new technology, and she believes basically this new AI, excuse me, is what's going to save medicine because she had a very negative experience as a child when she lost her mother.
Mhm.
And she felt like the medical system let her down. So she's all in for this new system. And then lo and behold, like it's a pretty classic trope of the medical thriller, something happens, looks like all is not right at the heart of this system. And so then it's basically her journey to figure out what is happening. And then also it's her inner journey. It's a deals with a lot of themes of grief and hope. So
Yeah. So if my listeners have not gotten to yet, Mysteries to Die For read the excerpt from The Algorithm Will See You Now. And I was driving listening to that. And even though I had read the excerpt, I could not get out of the car until I listened to all of that because it is so just profound having the rug pulled completely out from under you and how gung-ho she was and to be as astonished as she was. It, that character it was amazing that part of the book. I won't say much more after that because I that's easily accessible, and they want to read the book. But that was very dramatic and yeah, very emotional scenes.
yeah, that was so cool to hear her read that. Like, and actually I should admit, because this is new news, the audiobook is coming out soon. And
Oh,
so,
really?
um, but at the time, she read that for her podcast. I had never heard anyone else like read it aloud before, so that was it was really cool to hear that. Um, and then since
Yeah.
then I got to hear like auditions for the audiobook narrator, and I really love the one who uh we picked like with the publisher, and
Yeah.
she accepted it, and so it I don't have an exact date, but it might even be by the end of this month, so I'm very
Oh,
excited.
that's really exciting and very
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah. Yeah, this is I've shared a few posts on social media, but I haven't put a lot because I don't know the exact date, but so I guess this can kind of like be the announcement like coming soon.
I have to say, I love your social media posts, especially sharing your frustrations with your profession, no matter which one you're talking about. But it's really interesting, and to see a different side of your life, um, no matter, whether it's your medical professionals looking at it or the people that follow you as an author. They get to see multiple sides of your personality. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes I wonder, and I know some people like, make different accounts for the different things,
Yes.
but it's too, like, I feel like keeping up with social media is hard enough with one account. Like, so I just put it all in there. So,
I don't disagree. It's a lot.
yes.
So your second book, The Committee Will See You Now, is loosely related to The Algorithm Will See You Now, but they don't necessarily have to both be read, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly true. So it is a prequel in the sense that two of the characters from the algorithm are
Mhm.
in the committee will kill you now, and it goes back to their early days of training, and actually it's the villain or antagonist in book one who is an older sort of late career physician in that book, Dr. Mara Maddox. And so this jumps back to her early days. And I think really like in writing the algorithm and when you make your villain, you have to like, even if it's not, you don't put it on the page, you have to know like what happened to
Why?
them to make them the way they are. And so I started thinking like, wow, I really want to write her story. But it's not written from her point of view. It's written from the point of view of Noah Meyer, who's like the older mentor character in the first book. And I had kind of hinted that those two had some backstory. And so the book goes back and tells their story. So yeah, but you don't have to like you could read them in either order because
Mhm.
yeah, the plots aren't necessarily connected other than the character journey. So
And they're a significant distance apart in time, correct?
yes, yeah, it's their the first one is almost 40 years before the second one.
All right. And can you give us a little bit about that? Because I had never heard of the rationing or any of that. So can you give us a little bit of background about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is also set in Seattle, but now it jumps back to the early 1990s. And Noah Meyer is an intern who's struggling with the demands of training. And he, in the aftermath of a tragic event, makes a mistake. And then the book deals with things that were happening at that time in medicine, including like discussions of like how much transparency should there be in medical error. And it also, and I have this at the beginning of the book because I want everyone to know the trigger warning. It does deal with physician suicide and specifically of trainees. And um, then as part of the plotline, he discovers a journal of his father, and his father is deceased and was a very respected surgeon. And he discovers in the journal this story and this is where I pull in some more real life medical history, is that in early 1960s Seattle, that was the first site of hemodialysis, kidney dialysis in the United States. And they had only a very limited number of people they could treat. And so um, at the time, they thought this was the right way to do it, which just sounds crazy now. There was a committee of only one physician, and the rest were just lay people from the community. So, and the story broke in Life magazine a few years later in the 1960s, and I was just fascinated by this history. Like I went on eBay and I like got an old copy of the Life magazine, and then I found on YouTube like watching all these documentaries like 60 Minutes, and
Yeah.
it it just fascinated me because of the time and the clear like misogyny and bias and all these things that were happening in this committee, and yet that is how they decided like who got picked to have the dialysis. And um so Noah learning about this past, and I have at the back of the book like a lot of notes about this. Like I want to be really clear that like everything I put with my characters in there is totally fictionized, because the
Right.
people in this committee were totally anonymous. But I just felt like the themes are so relevant to today, and so it's like writing about the past, but hopefully then it helps us all like reflect on like our own world, I guess.
Well, I mean, and truthfully, in some respects, people still deal with that every day because they're given ultimatums when a loved one or they are seeking help, and these are our options, or you don't have options. Um, so, I mean, it's a very real scenario, even though it's not, but it's definitely
Right.
applicable.
Yeah, yeah. And that's like you kind of alluded to, like I will post, and I've written a lot of pieces like advocacy about the our problems nowadays with the health insurance prior authorizations, and so yeah, there's definitely a very long history of those
Committees
kinds of
deciding.
things.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very scary thing. I mean, and both of your books really deal with the patient having, or the patient's family having absolutely no recourse or decision in healthcare or where it goes from here. Um, and that's very scary, not knowing um, what you could do or what you couldn't do, or having choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's in the first book, of course, like trying to use that sort of I mean, it's not really dystopian because it's like very close to our real world. Well,
Mhm.
maybe I need to take that back. Um, are we living in a dystopia? I don't know. But uh
Things I feel like we're living in like the Jetsons world.
yeah. But basically, what I think is probably very clear to readers is like what I'm asking people to think about is, who do we want to be in control of these kind of tools?
Mhm.
And so that's one of my themes, I guess.
I mean, and that's a very big theme. I mean, and at the other end of the spectrum is euthanasia and people who would prefer to die, but then there are people who prefer to live or to be fixed or to keep trying, and they aren't necessarily given options. So, I mean, and you kind of talk about that, and you show very profoundly how it affects the doctors and patients and the families in the books. Um, so it it's a very real book, and very difficult to read if you're not ready for.
Yes, I definitely recognize that these books will not appeal to everyone.
Yeah, no, Wendy and I have talked about it. She's like, "You've got to read this," and I'm like, "I I lost my mom last year." I said, "I
Oh,
will
I'm
read
so
it, and I'm
sorry.
gonna love it." I said, "But I can't do that yet." I said, "I just know I can't do that yet." But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to having the opportunity to read both of these because they are frightening to the core. Way too close to comfort, though.
And hopefully too, like even though they deal with these darker things, like
Yeah.
it has been rewarding to see like a lot of reviews for both books, like recognizing that there's still like a hopeful
Yes.
aspect there. Like it's not all tragedy necessarily.
No, they're absolutely wonderful. Everyone I've talked to that has gotten to read them has absolutely loved them. And just said that it was such an emotional journey for them. Um, so way to go.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that so much. I mean, I'm still like a new enough author that it's just like any review, like anyone that reaches out and says like the book meant something to them or resonated with them, it's just like it just means so much. Because when, the first book was published, I was so nervous. Was just thinking and wondering, like, I don't know if anybody's going to understand this or get this. And then,
Yes,
so when, like, seriously, like, as an author, if you have just one person, it feels worthwhile. So it means a
I'm so
lot.
glad. I'm glad they've been reaching out and sharing with you how much it means to them.
Yeah.
Um, because yeah, I know I've heard a lot too. So it's
Oh,
wonderful.
thank you for that.
Now, do you do author events? Go hang out with people in bookstores or
Uh, I haven't yet. I mean, I would love to do something like that, or online book clubs or because I live in a small town and because I'm a practicing physician in the town, like I haven't approached like the local bookstore because it makes me feel kind of like I don't know, conflicted. Like I would not want anyone ever to feel like any pressure to like buy it or anything like that. So I don't know, but I've been thinking about maybe getting brave enough and approaching them. But um I don't know. I think we go through so much like rejection as authors. I think it's like then even when the book is published, you still like fear this rejection. Sorry to say to any writers out there who think it ends. Maybe it does for some people, but
I don't know. I think as long as you're caring about your readers, you still are going
yeah,
to want them to love your books.
yeah.
So yeah. Um, all right. So what else is it that you like to do in your like 3 minutes of free time that you get for?
Oh gosh. Well, I still like to read a lot. So
Mhm.
I kind of alternate with, sometimes like if I'm taking a break from writing and just reading and reading for fun. Um I also, just when my teens will permit me to hang out with them, like to hang out with them. Um, we're in winter now in Oregon, so it's, not the greatest weather. So looking forward to summer when we can like get outside and do things again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it pretty chilly up there then?
We live on the coast, so like it tends to temper it. So we tend to be like 40s and 50s. So it's not too cold, except for the ice storm we had a few weeks back, or maybe that was like a month ago now. But it tends to just be like a lot of rain. So
Hmm.
yeah, everything you've heard
Okay.
about the rain is true.
And what kind of things do you like to do with your kids when they allow you to hang out with them?
Well, just I mean, we're lucky to live in this beautiful state. So yeah, when the weather's nice, there's so many things to go do outside, hiking and kayaking and things like that. And then, nowadays, I mean, I'm just at the point, to be honest, like everything's just like I try to just keep everything so simplified. So like even if like there's a night where everybody agrees to watch the same movie together in the same room, like that makes me really happy. So just little moments like that.
Yeah, I'm usually happy if everybody can show up for dinner at the same time on the same day.
Yes, exactly. Me too.
That's great. Now, getting back to your books, I have a question.
Okay.
Is there something that is very important to you to share with your readers, that you absolutely need them to know when they read your books, before or after?
Oh, that's such a great question. I don't know that I was thinking these when I wrote them, but like recently, I don't remember what it was, but something prompted me to think about like what would I say my books are about in just like one line if I had to? And at first I was like, oh, that's really hard. How would I even answer that? But then what came to me was that I think what it just boils down to is that doctors are human. And so I think like that maybe isn't the only theme, but I realized that, and again, I think that place that, came from me out of being just completely burned out and like not even really treating myself as human because we're just it's kind of like trained out of us. So
Yes.
and so just like for me, like writing these books was an act of like kind of like embracing my humanity and that I can have all these other parts of myself. And, maybe there are people who work with who won't understand them. They'll think it's, silly or trivial. But I mean, I don't really care anymore. I feel like also like since I've turned 50, I'm just like in this new phase of my life where I'm like, oh, that's you think what you think, I'll think what I think, and that's fine. And it's very empowering.
It's a wonderful place to be. They always talk about the bad stuff that happens when you turn 50, but never the good stuff.
Right. There's a lot of good.
Terrific. So, how can we find your books and access your um, social media?
Yeah, well, my website is just my name, jenniferlycette.com. And so you can
Mhm.
find links on there. Basically, the ebooks are exclusive on Kindle and paperbacks you can buy, online, any bookseller, that it's nice to support, the indie booksellers. Um, and yeah, did that answer your question? I'm sorry. I felt like I got off track there for a minute.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And social media, we can get to you from your website.
Yeah, from the website, I am mainly on Instagram.
Okay,
I got off Twitter a while ago. It's just JL_Lycette. And then I do have a Facebook author page too. And so, but yeah, all the links are from the website. So
perfect. And I'll add them in the show notes as well. Is
great.
there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
I actually have one thing if I could. I wanted to just share about this anthology I was a part of.
Yeah,
It's I'm going to look at it to get it right. It's called An Evolution of Empowerment: Voices of Women in Medicine and Their Allies. And so this was a book that came out last fall with an organization called Women in Medicine Summit. And I have a couple pieces in it, but there's a lot of great writing in it. And they are a nonprofit, and so looking to get the word out. So I thought if I could, I would just put a little plug in for that.
absolutely. And I will get the link from you and put that in the show notes as well so that we can add that.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. It is great to have you with us today.
It was great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And we will see you again soon. And I can't wait to see what you write next.
Oh, thank you so much.